everyone. I'm Ben.
And I'm Bob.
We're from Brewing Company. We're here today to talk about Allagash Brewing's Drink It Now Day, March 7th. We're going to go through some beers you should drink as fresh as possible, and also discuss some beers that you may age but should crack into from your cellar occasionally and not let rot and die. All right, most of the beers we make are meant to be drank as fresh as possible.
Absolutely.
We make a lot of hop-forward beers. Basically, the rule of thumb, if it's a hoppy beer, if it's an IPA, drink it as fresh as you can. Most of our beers, or all of our beers, have a date code on there, and most are best within 90 days, and it's on the bottom of your can. So, Furious is our flagship. This beer you should drink literally as fresh as you can get. So we're going to try one right now. This is just taken off the canning line. Why should we drink these beers fresh, Bob?
Well, IPAs, especially with anything hoppy, the hops will just start to degrade over time. Hops will go through a whole bunch of phases, but after normally about 90 days, pretty much all the oils and the really citrus and fruity characters just dead.
We do make some beers that are able to age and do pretty well on the shelf. Primarily the most important one is Darkness, our Russian Imperial Stout. We do our regular Darkness. We also have the barrel-aged versions, including some variants we release in the wintertime. Can you compare this beer as it ages over time, Bob?
Yeah, well, Darkness, over time, a lot of higher ABV beers or darker or maltier beers can benefit from a little bit of cellaring if you want. They're just going to basically pick up a little bit more of a richness, almost like a more umami type character to it. A little bit more of that kind of chocolate character as well. It's just a hint of oxidation, can mellow out some of the heat and booziness of some of those beers as well. But all in all, I think we make them so they're ready to go right out of the gate.
Yeah, and Fresh Darkness has a great hop character. It's actually got a pretty decent hop load in the whirlpool, and you kind of lose that over time. So personally, I enjoy it as fresh as you can get it, but it does age well. We recently did some vertical tastings, and I think the consensus was 4 or 5 years, kind of the sweet spot. We also do some mixed fermentation beers, and these are beers that are made with so-called wild yeast, like Brettanomyces yeast, also some bacteria, such as Pediococcus, Lactobacillus. And these beers age a little bit differently. Most, 99% of beers meant to be drank fresh, which is very different from wine, which does a lot better after 3, 4, 5 years in the bottle. Mixed fermentation beers like our Pentagram actually do benefit from a few years in the bottle. They kind of evolve and grow as they age, and you get some really interesting, funky flavors from it.
And the funkiness, especially over time on a lot of these beers as you cellar them, especially at a colder temperature, a lot of that kind of barnyardy type character will mellow out as well. So just kind of like with the rich dark type beers, how the ABV and the kind of alcohol burn might decrease a little bit, kind of the funkiness will mellow into itself in a lot of these kind of more wild yeast strain beers. But definitely also keep these beers cold, because if it's warm, some of those wild yeast strains or that bacteria can kind of reactivate. So a lot of these beers, if you store them really, really hot, these are kind of the ones that kind of foam over when you crack them up if they're stored too warmly.
So in conclusion, if you're getting an IPA or other hop-forward beer, drink it as fresh as possible. If you're laying some beers down in the cellar, look for higher ABV beers, anything with the Imperial in the name, mixed fermentation stuff. But have a plan for those beers. Bring them out and share them with your family. No time is better than the present.
Yeah, definitely just don't put bottles away and then just forget about them. Make sure that when you put a bottle in your cellar that you come back to it and you know when. Celebrate any occasion. Even if it's just making it to Saturday, it's a perfect time to open up one of the bottles in your cellar. So all in all, drink it now.
Fresh as shit. Back to the cellar, Bob.
Here we go.